I was able to catch up with a lot of the guys on the Blues today, and I cannot wait to tell you about it.
Hey, this is Braden Shen. Subscribe to Locked On Blues.
You're Locked On Blues, your daily podcast on the St. Louis Blues. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome back to Locked On Blues. I am your host of Locked On Blues, Haley Taylor Simon, talking to you all things about our St. Louis Blues, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today on Locked On Blues, I want to talk to you about what I did today. And yes, that is indeed seeing the guys on the Blues in my city. I was able to catch up with so many of them. It was nice to see familiar faces again. The Blues have the Flyers tomorrow. And my perspective on the team overall changed. And maybe that had to deal with some conversations that I had with the guys. But it's very interesting, actually, what some of them said. So we do have a lot to talk about today on Locked On Blues. I do want to let you know, however, that the Locked On Podcast Network is the most listened to sports podcast network. And I want to thank every single one of you for listening, for watching, for being a part of this community. We have a really special community where we get to talk about the Blues every single day. The good, clearly the bad, and clearly the ugly. But overall, we have an awesome, awesome community here. So make sure to hit that subscribe button if you're watching online on YouTube, or make sure to subscribe or follow or whatever you do on any of your other podcasting apps. So the Blues were in Philadelphia today. Well, they were actually in New Jersey. Well, to give you a preference, they were at the Flyers practice facility, which is in New Jersey. So I know it seems far away, but in reality, it's just right over the bridge of Philadelphia. So it's about like 20 minutes away from the city. And I was able to see so many people. I saw Jamie Rivers today, my buddy Jamie. Um, all these people in the media that, I really respect. And we all know, Jamie's the guy. But I was able to catch up with Captain Braden Shen, who is one of my favorite people on the planet to talk to, athlete-wise, because he is honestly the most authentic and real person. I talked to Oscar Sundquist. Yes, I spoke to Sonny. And again, when I am telling you that the Blues locker room is one of the most likable locker rooms in the NHL, take it for how that is. Like, they are literally likable. We spoke for a while. I spoke with Nathan Walker. I spoke with Tyler Tucker. I spoke with Jordan Kyrou, Bushi. Talked a little bit with Pius Suter. Not Ryan, I know. Pius. Mojo. Well, Matthew Joseph. He looks at me. He's like, "What time is it?" And I'm like, "It's 2:33." And he's like, "Oh my gosh!" And again, like, he's funny. And then Hofs just for a second, but these athletes, these guys, happen to be funny. They happen to have such great personality. And the one thing I can say is this. And of course, I have audio, right? I have all the fun things that we do on the podcast. But I just wanted to talk about the locker room, because a lot of people might be like, well, the Blues are not playing good hockey, so the locker room must be depressing. And it's not. These guys, every single one of the players I spoke to said that they want to win. But not only that, they gave credit to the fans. Okay? They acknowledge the loyalty in the fan base that we have here. They acknowledge how day in and day out you show up to Enterprise, you watch on the TV, you listen on the radio. You, not them, but you are the heart and soul of the team, and they play for it, and they credit you. And their message, Braden Shen even said, the message to the fans are, we want to win, but how you guys are the best fan base in hockey. And I have to tell you, And I was talking to Shen about this off, not in the recording, but just, talking. Because again, I think this is my third time now. Yeah, my third time that I've been doing this with these guys. Year one, it's like, hey, I'm Haley. Nice to meet you. Year two, it's like, hey, good to see you guys again. Today, I walked into the locker room. Every single guy that I've spoken to in the past knew who I was, knew about the podcast, and were just so excited to, see a familiar face in a city that they don't come to often. It's only once a season. So when I was talking to Braden, obviously he played for the Flyers. And yes, of course, I used to watch Braden Shen when he was with Philadelphia. And I said to him, I have to tell you, the fan base in St. Louis, it's special because they know I'm not from St. Louis and they accepted me. They embraced me. And the community is so strong that I have to just let you know you're playing in front of a crowd of truly some of the best people. And I do mean that. Like when the Blues go on the power play and it's like Blues power play. And then it's like, dun, dun. I'm not going to sing for you because, again, don't have the best voice for that. It's something so special. And I just wanted you to know that to each player that I spoke to, I brought that up, the fans, you, because I think that when a team is not playing well, it's so easy as a fan, especially to say, oh, well, why should I watch? Why should I care? And it's going to sound a little cliche, a little cheesy, but it's because they care about you. All of the players expressed gratitude towards the fans. And I think for me, being in this industry in hockey for 5 years now, I've spoken to so many athletes, not just Flyers players, okay? I think I've spoken to almost guys on every single team, to be honest with you, because sometimes after the games, I'll go into the opposing team's locker room. With the Blues, of course, I have practice, I have morning skate tomorrow, I have the game, so I have more time to see the guys. But the consistency of appreciation towards the fan base, towards the city, is something like no other. I mean, when you're a team who's not performing well, it's easy to be down on yourself and, to be upset and frustrated, and that's normal. I mean, these are athletes, man. But I mean, the vibe in the locker room, being in the locker room, it felt optimistic and positive, and it felt so different than what we see on the ice. Sometimes what we see on the ice isn't good hockey. And again, I don't think that this is a horrible hockey team. I see the bonds that these guys have with each other and the love that they have for each other. Uh, Topics that will go out in a later episode of Locked On Blues is I asked all the guys who the funniest person in the locker room is. And I'm not going to spoil it because, again, hashtag content. But I think you would be surprised about how tight the group is considering how the season's been. And I know that might sound surprising to you, but it's the reality that usually teams that don't do well don't have this like bond, but these guys do, which I'll talk about later about how my perspective changed. But I just wanted you to know, you know, I talk about the Blues 5 days a week for 3 years now, right? And I am amazed every time I have an opportunity to talk to a player about what they say about the fan base. And you deserve to hear that. I know a lot of media stuff, it's always, pregame or postgame, and it's never really about anything else other than that. But these guys, I wanted to make sure that you knew how much they appreciate you and your loyalty. and why the Blues do have the best fans in the National Hockey League. The Blues, though, they do have a game tomorrow, and that is against the Philadelphia Flyers, with the Blues being in Philly. That's a little obvious. But before we dive into that, I want to talk to you about my friends over at Rugiet. Let's be real, making excuses doesn't solve anything. We've all heard them before. It's just stress. I'm tired. Or it happens to everyone sometimes. But that's when it comes to performance. Sometimes your body, it just needs a little extra support. And that's where Rugiet comes in. Rugiet.com offers fast acting, doctor prescribed treatments for ED designed to help you stop making excuses and start making moves. Rugi makes it to get started so easy, okay? All you have to do is you connect with a board certified doctor, and it's 100% online. No awkward waiting rooms, no in person appointments. And it's all about being confident, connection, and getting back to the moment that does matter. So visit rugiet.com/locked on NHL to get 15% off your first order. That's rugiet.com/locked on NHL. And don't forget to use our code locked on NHL so they know we sent you. Rugiet, stop making excuses and start making moves. It's going to be an interesting contest tomorrow because the last time that the Blues and Flyers played, it was a 6-5 Flyers victory due to the shootout, but nonetheless, a high-scoring game. I mean, if you think about it, that's 11 goals, right? Altogether. I mean, not ideal. That's 10 regulation goals. And if, again, you're like somebody like me, you're like, oh, well, the defense on both teams might be a little bit iffy. But the way that I see it, right, the Flyers are a really interesting team because they look like they're so much better than they are. And what I mean by that is this, and it's simple. I'm going to keep it simple with you. They have 4 regulation wins. And I feel like I have been saying that now for a couple weeks. And it has been a couple weeks since they got a regulation win. They are 3-0 in the shootout, which is really good. But they usually win an OT or, as I mentioned, the shootout. And that's an issue because it shows for whatever reason, if they do have the lead, they're not able to hold on to it or they're not able to come back when behind. And I think, again, just my speculation of knowing both teams, I think that they both have strengths and weaknesses in the opposite ends of the field. I think the Blues struggle with defense. And again, I've been saying that for a while now, so that's nothing new to you and I. But the Flyers, I mean, they're really not horrible defensively. Well, okay, I guess the last game you might think that, but they're really not in reality. Offensively, with how Rick Tocchet coaches, they don't jump the offensive zone. And that to me is an issue just because when I think of hockey and I think of good hockey, I always think, well, maybe you should, you know, jump the ozone or, play more up. And they don't. And that's talkie hockey. And I think for a team like Philadelphia, they would really benefit, right, from playing that way. Now, I know you're saying, not against us, not against the Blues. Okay, like, again, I'm just saying a very general statement. I only get to talk about the Flyers every so often here on this podcast. But I think it is one of those things where it's easier said than done. So when you have both ends being completely opposite, right? Because I feel like the Blues' forwards are strong. Now, again, the shootout needs work. That was ugly. Holloway, ew. The first one, Schenner, ew, ew, not good at all. But again, the Blues are like 0-4 in OT or something bad. I mean, clearly they're not winning, but they have a 10-day road trip, which is also a lot. But again, getting back to my main point, That's why this score is so high, because they don't match up well when it comes to other things. Do I like that they play each other that closely? And the answer is no, selfishly. As somebody that does a daily St. Louis Blues podcast, I only get to see the guys a couple times a year. And by a couple times, I mean literally this time around, I have 2 days with the team. I had practice today, and then I'll have the game tomorrow. Well, I'll have morning skate and then the game. And I have that benefit, and I'm happy I have that benefit. But my first season, I only had morning skate in the game. So, no, because if they played the Flyers later on in the season, I could get some like juicy content when it comes to like the trade deadline and, all that fun stuff. Monty didn't speak today. Uh Practice today, by the way, just to give you like a inside information, they had a lot of 2-on-2 drills. They had a lot of just shooting drills. Nothing with lines. I mean, the third line kind of got together for a hot minute, but nothing like that. It was just like a lot of just skating and shooting drills. And it was a long practice. It was I want to say it was about like over an hour. It was a long practice. And I think coming off of the game against, the Maple Leafs, and I do believe that the Blues played well. And I was talking to Tucker about that. It's difficult, okay? Because while they did play well, they just couldn't get the job done in OT. I know William Nylander, blah blah blah. I know how it ended, but at the same time, you need to figure out a way where you can get those wins in overtime. It's like I'm saying what the opposite of the Flyers is, because they literally thrive in OT and shootouts, and the Blues do better when it's regulation wins. It's so interesting, the difference between the two organizations and teams. But at practice today, like, you see those turnovers and you see silly things, and it's like, come on, get back in it. And you don't see what you want to see. But I do believe things are going to turn around. And I'm going to talk about my perspective in a minute. I just have to say, if the lines are the same as Toronto, I'll be happy with that. I want it to be Binnington and net. I do. I have a feeling that it might be Joel Hofer. We'll see. Again, nothing was said today, so I don't know. And tomorrow I will know, but it's weird. I also have to tell you too, what's weird is, and this is like so random, but because I talk about the Blues on like a daily basis, literally, whenever I do see the guys or I see the Blue Note, I'm like, whoa, this is like insane. And it really is for me, because like seeing them here in the city that, I'm at, I'm like, wow, this is surreal. But again, it's always good seeing the guys. Cannot say enough good things about them as people and even as athletes, right? Because again, these are professional athletes. Coming up, my perspective did change. And I'll tell you the player that did change my perspective, because you might be like curious actually about that. But first, I'm going to tell you about my friends over at FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score first to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to fanduel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. My perspective on the Blues did change, and I have to give credit to a guy who is the heart and soul of this team. And yes, it is Sunny. I think for me, again, I'm not in the locker room every day, right? It's only like once or twice a season. I don't see the ins and outs of it. And that's why I'm always crediting the fantastic reporters who do, because they see, the everyday aspect of this. And that's something really special. And again, they do such a great job. And I seriously encourage you to read their work because it is fantastic. Whether it's JR or Lou, Matt, all of them, fantastic journalists. But today I experienced something, and that was my perspective changed. I know I mentioned this earlier in my show, but when I went into the locker room and I told you that it was positive, I had a player. If you go on Locked On Blues, you will see, and that's the Twitter account at Locked On Blues. You will see the player that is now going to be doing the new intro for the podcast coming up. I'm not going to give you who it is because I want you to check out on social media. So shameless promo, but you'll find out soon enough if you don't have social media. And all of the guys were cracked because I did it like as a video just so YouTube would have like a face if, I'm able to get it edited a certain way, whatever, right? And they all were cracking up and laughing, but it wasn't like laughing at me, by the way. The guys weren't like, ha ha ha. Like, we're all like laughing together. And like, it was one of those environments where I was like, oh, I'm one of the guys. But like, seriously, like, it was super cool and such a cool moment. And I said to Sunny, hey, when you're ready, can we talk? Because again, like they just gotta practice. I don't like ambushing players when they're, taking off their gear and, I just don't want to be like that person that's like, when you're ready, we can talk. If you don't want to talk, that's fine. I'm never gonna make somebody talk to me. So we're talking, and we're talking about the team and how the season has been. And I kind of say to Sunny, hey, listen, I'm not going to get into too much detail about the season, And he then tells me, I think we're going to turn things around. And he was sincere about how he said that. And that moment, it hit me. Wait, it is early still. Well, it does seem like this has been the longest season ever because it does feel that way. It's still early enough that they can turn things around, and these are professional athletes. Of course, they want to win. Sometimes I have to remind myself of that, to be honest with you, that at the end of the day, it's so easy for you and I to say, well, tank for McKenna, like, which I've been saying. And like, I kind of like still feel that way, like hashtag tank for McKenna. But for them, they would never think that way. That's not how an athlete thinks. And not these guys. They would never. So for them, they want to win. They want to be successful. I mean, they were in the playoffs last season. Of course, they want to go back to the playoffs. Like, why wouldn't they? And I feel like every single guy has the talent and they have the ability and they have the motivation. And I know that you might say, well, the way they play on the ice, it doesn't seem like they actually want it. They do. When I am telling you, every single player that I spoke to today said the same thing about how they want to turn things around and begin winning. They do. They really do. And again, I know it's so cliche to say that, but the sincerity in their voices proves to me otherwise. They had an over an hour practice today, a day after a game where they had to travel. They practiced for over an hour. You know why? Because these guys are hardworking athletes. And there were specifics that they worked on, and I can appreciate that 100%. But I just think it goes to show that while we're not seeing the results on, game day ice that we want to see, they are still putting in 110%. When I watch practices, I always look for, who is doing well, who is struggling in drills, right? And that's what I do with the Flyers. And I have to tell you, Jimmy Snuggerud, his shot, his backhanded shot on net, it's beautiful. I know. You weren't probably expecting me to say that, but I was like watching and I was like, ooh, this is nice. And Dvorsky looks good. I mean, he blends right in, which is something that you do want to see out of a player that, you call it up from the AHL. This is a team that has promise, okay? The locker room, the vibe, all of it, as minute as it might sound, it does matter. I promise you that. So, with that being said, I am so excited. I am optimistic, and this is so much fun for me to do talking to the guys and seeing them again. So, we'll talk tomorrow. And like always, let's go Blues.